I watched my grandfather lose his hair at 30. By 40, his scalp was bare and shining under the sun. He rubbed oils on it, wrapped it in cloth at night, prayed over it. Nothing came back. My father lost his hair the same way. Same age, same pattern, same helplessness. I watched them both accept it as fate, as genetics, as something written into the blood that no man could rewrite. I am 97 years old. My hair is still here, not thick like a young man's, but present. Silver, yes, thin in places, yes, but rooted, growing, alive. People ask me if I diet, if I wear a piece, if I had surgery. I tell them no, they don't believe me. They think I'm lying or lucky. They never ask what I did. They never ask what I ate. They never ask what I avoided. I grew up in a village where no one went bald early. Men in their 70s still had hair, not all of them. Not perfectly. But they didn't lose it at 30. They didn't wake up one morning and see their youth falling out in clumps. I thought that was normal. I thought everyone aged that way. Then I moved to the city. I saw young men with smooth foreheads and exposed crowns. I saw them embarrassed. I saw them buying caps and creams and treatments that cost more than a month of food. I saw them spend and still lose. I asked my grandmother once why the men in our village kept their hair longer. She laughed. She said it wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was the forest. She said we ate what grew around us, and what grew around us knew how to protect itself. Plants that survived storms and droughts and insects didn't survive by being weak. They survived by being strong. And when we ate them, we borrowed that strength. There was one plant she pointed to more than any other. It grew wild near water, tall stems, fern-like leaves, bitter roots. We called it by a name I can't translate cleanly into English. But in markets today, it's labeled as horsetail. She said the old women used to boil the stems and drink the water, not because they were sick, not because they were balding, because it kept things strong, nails, skin, hair, bones. She said it was full of something the body needed to build itself. She didn't know the word silica. She didn't need to. She just knew it worked. I didn't think about it much as a child. I drank it because everyone did. It tasted like green water, slightly metallic, slightly bitter. We drank it in the morning, sometimes in the evening. We didn't measure it. We didn't track it. It was just part of the routine, like washing your face or saying grace. Nobody called it medicine. It was food. It was habit. It was life. When I left the village, I stopped drinking it. There was no horsetail in the city. There were no old women boiling stems in clay pots. There were pharmacies. There were doctors. There were shelves of bottles with labels I couldn't read and prices I couldn't afford. I thought that was progress. I thought science had replaced the plants. I thought I didn't need them anymore. My hair started thinning in my 40s, not badly. Just enough to notice, a little more scalp visible under bright light, a little more hair in the comb. I ignored it. I thought it was normal. I thought it was age. Then I visited my cousin back in the village. He was the same age as me. His hair was still full, still dark in places. I asked him what he used. He looked confused. He said he didn't use anything. He just drank the same water we always drank, the same horsetail tea, the same bitter green routine. I started drinking it again, not every day at first, a few times a week. I found dried horsetail in a small herb shop near the market. The owner didn't know what it was for. She said people bought it for kidneys, for bones, for skin. Nobody mentioned hair. I didn't mention it either. I just bought it and boiled it and drank it like I used to. Nothing happened for weeks, then months. I didn't expect anything. I wasn't tracking it. I wasn't taking photos. I wasn't counting hairs. I just kept drinking it because it reminded me of home. Then one morning my barber said something. He said my hair felt thicker. He asked if I was using a new shampoo. I wasn't. I was using the same soap bar I'd used for years, but he was right. It did feel thicker. It did feel stronger. I looked closer in the mirror. The thinning spots weren't filling in fast, but they weren't getting worse. The hair that was there looked healthier, less brittle, less gray at the roots. I kept drinking it every morning. 1 cup. Hot water poured over a small handful of dried stems, steeped for 10 minutes, strained, drunk slowly. I didn't add honey. I didn't add lemon. I drank it plain, the way my grandmother did. After 6 months, my barber asked if I was taking vitamins. After a year, people stopped asking. They assumed I was just aging well. They didn't know I was doing anything. Years later, I learned what scientists discovered about horsetail. They found it contained silica, the same mineral that strengthens glass and steel. They found that silica helps the body produce collagen, the protein that holds skin and hair and nails together. They found that people with thinning hair often had low silica levels. They found that increasing silica intake improved hair thickness and strength in clinical studies. They found all of this decades after my grandmother told me to drink the water. But here's what confused me. If scientists knew this, why didn't doctors recommend it? Why did they prescribe pills that cost hundreds of dollars and cause side effects? Why did they push treatments that required months of use and still only worked for some people? I started paying attention. I started reading labels. I started listening to advertisements. I realized something. Horsetail grows everywhere. It grows wild across 6 continents. It grows near rivers, in ditches, along roadsides, in forests. It grows without pesticides, without fertilizers, without human intervention. It has grown for millions of years. It is abundant. It is free. It cannot be patented. It cannot be owned. A company cannot claim it as theirs. They cannot charge $400 for it. They cannot make it prescription only. They cannot build a market around it. So they don't. They ignore it. They study it just enough to publish papers that almost no one reads. They acknowledge that, yes, silica helps hair growth, but they never tell patients to drink horsetail tea. Instead, they prescribe finasteride. They prescribe minoxidil. They prescribe drugs that block hormones, that irritate the scalp, that require daily use forever, drugs that cost more every year, drugs that stop working the moment you stop paying, drugs that come with warnings about dizziness, about sexual dysfunction, about birth defects. I'm not saying those drugs don't work. They do for some people. I'm saying they're not the only option. I'm saying there was another option that existed long before those drugs were invented, and it still exists and it still works, and almost no one talks about it because talking about it doesn't make money, because teaching people to forage and boil plants doesn't build $1 billion industry, because a plant that grows wild can't be controlled. I kept drinking horsetail into my 50s, 60s, 70s. My hair didn't grow back like a young man's. It didn't thicken into a dense mane, but it stayed. It stayed longer than my father's, longer than my grandfather's, longer than most men I knew. I didn't go bald. I didn't develop the horseshoe pattern. I didn't wake up one day and see my reflection and feel betrayed by my own body. I just aged, slowly, naturally, without panic. People asked me if I took supplements. I said no. They asked if I used expensive shampoos. I said no. They asked if I had good genetics. I said my father and grandfather both went bald young, so no. They stopped asking. They assumed I was lying or lucky. They didn't want to hear about tea. They didn't want to hear about plants. They wanted a pill. They wanted a prescription. They wanted a dermatologist to fix them. And dermatologists gave them what they wanted because that's what dermatologists are trained to do. Prescribe, treat, manage, not educate, not empower, not send patients home with instructions to boil weeds. I don't blame the doctors. They work within a system that rewards prescriptions and procedures, not prevention. They have 10 minutes per patient. They have quotas. They have pharmaceutical reps visiting their offices with free samples and glossy brochures. They have guidelines written by committees funded by drug companies. They don't have time to teach someone how to identify horsetail in the wild, how to harvest it safely, how to prepare it properly. It's easier to write a prescription, faster, more profitable, more accepted. But I wonder what would happen if they did teach it, if they told patients that before spending $400 a month on pills, they could try a plant that costs $4 a pound and grows in every temperate region on Earth. If they explained that silica supports not just hair, but skin, nails, bones, connective tissue. If they mentioned that horsetail has been used for thousands of years across dozens of cultures, not because those cultures were ignorant, but because it worked. If they admitted that modern medicine didn't invent hair growth, it just monetized it. I'm not saying everyone should stop seeing doctors. I'm not saying modern treatments are evil. I'm saying we forgot something important. We forgot that the body knows how to heal itself if we give it the right materials. We forgot that plants contain the building blocks the body needs. We forgot that health doesn't always require intervention. Sometimes it just requires support. Sometimes it just requires patience. Horsetail doesn't work in a week. It doesn't work in a month. It works slowly the way the body works. Hair grows in cycles. Follicles rest. Follicles wake. Follicles strengthen. This takes time. 3 months, 6 months, a year. Most people quit before they see results. They drink the tea for a few weeks, see no change, and go back to the pharmacy. They think it didn't work. They think they wasted their time. They don't realize they stopped right before the shift. They don't realize patience is part of the process. I drank horsetail for decades. I still drink it now. 1 cup most mornings. I don't track it. I don't measure my hair thickness. I don't take before and after photos. I just drink it. The way I drink water, the way I breathe, it's not a treatment, it's a habit. It's part of how I live. And my hair is still here, thinner than it was at 20, yes. Whiter than it was at 40, yes, but here, growing, alive. I don't know if it will work for everyone. Bodies are different. Genetics are different. Some people lose hair because of stress, because of illness, because of damage that goes deeper than a missing mineral. But I know it worked for me. I know it worked for the men in my village. I know it worked long before dermatologists existed, long before clinical trials, long before anyone could profit from it. And I know it still works now, quietly, unnoticed, unprescribed, while people spend fortunes on drugs that do the same thing with more risk and more cost. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what I did. I drank a tea made from a plant that grows almost everywhere. I drank it slowly, consistently, without expectation. I let it work the way it was designed to work, over time, through support, not force. I didn't fight my body. I didn't flood it with chemicals. I didn't block its hormones. I just gave it the materials it needed to stay strong. And it did. I don't regret the choices I made. I don't regret ignoring the advertisements and the prescriptions and the $400 promises. I regret nothing. I just lived. I drank my tea. I aged without panic. And my hair stayed with me, the way the forest stayed with the village, the way the old knowledge stays alive even when no one teaches it anymore. It stays because it's true, and truth doesn't need permission to work.